You know when a comment just slaps you awake and has you rethinking everything? I was scrolling through the comments of a recent video and I found this one by @BlueKnit. They say, I can't be bothered taking the time to knit a wardrobe staple in stockinette in a neutral color. I can buy that at the store. If I'm taking the time to knit, I want to knit something unique. And honestly, this comment turned my whole perspective upside down. So let's pull on this thread and see where it takes us. Hello, and welcome to the Wool Needles Hands Midweek Ramble. My name is Taylor, and I will be your host. I have a question for you. Do you knit to make clothes, or do you knit to have clothes? It's not a binary, there's no right or wrong answer, but the way we each answer this question shines a light on how we approach knitting, and maybe even a little bit on how we approach life. And to ground this in something fresh, I asked all of you in a poll recently over on the community thread about what it is that inspires you or gets you excited to cast on, and I gave you 4 options. 14% of you said bold colors and interesting textures, statement pieces. 39% of you said timeless, cozy pieces that you'll wear often, the staples. Nearly half, 47% of you said a little bit of everything, which included the 2% of you that admitted that you'll knit anything that's hot right now. That's fascinating because those 4 answers map out the knitting universe almost perfectly. We have the artists, the providers, the blurry middle, and the trend chasers. And I want to talk about all of that today. And I want to begin at the beginning with the craft first knitters. You'll know these people as the process makers. They live for the process. They want something to challenge their hands, intrigue their minds, stimulate their brains, spark their creativity. Knitting to them is a craft, a playground, a way to make something that no one else has. Why spend months knitting something that looks like I bought it at H&M when I could spend those same months creating something that's truly mine? Like @redlabel7833 put it, if it's something I could buy off the rack, I don't want to make it. I knit to make unique pieces. For the craft first knitter, the value isn't necessarily in having a sweater at the end. Of course, that's great, but they get the most out of the process, the stitching itself, the twists of a cable, the meditative repetition of a really beautiful lace chart, the magic of stranded color work coming together. And I get that. There's a thrill in wearing something and having people ask you, where did you get that? And then being able to say, oh, I made this. And that's not because it looks like something you could have bought, but because it looks like something you never could have found anywhere. The original comment from @BlueKnit, that's pure craft process energy. Knitting is a form of rebellion against the ordinary. But then, on the other end of this spectrum, you have the clothing first knitter. These are your product makers. These are the folks who see knitting as a form of providing for either themselves or their family members, and it's completely okay if it's mostly for yourself. Selfish knitting is okay. I give you permission. Not that you need it, but just so you know. The clothing first knitter or the product first knitter want their time and their yarn spent on something that they know they're going to wear or use often. Something practical, something that fills a gap, either in their home or in their wardrobe. For them, a beige cardigan isn't boring. It's the most powerful knit in their closet. It's the workhorse. That's the sweater that gets worn 4 days out of the week. Layered under coats, tossed over dresses, paired with jeans. And they're proud of the fact that they made it. It gives them an empowering sense of independence. These are the makers standing on the front lines, fighting the battle against fast fashion. And I am here for that and fully respect it. It's not about the fireworks of knitting. It's about slow, steady value. Now, here's where things get interesting because most of us, we don't land one place or the other. We're the blurry middle. Nearly half of you, 47%, said that you're a little bit of everything in this regard. And honestly, I think that's where the richest conversations surrounding this topic happen. It reminds us that it's not just black and white. We can actually feel like, in the grand scheme of things, we identify as a product maker. But we can allow that to evolve or change completely as we turn more into a process maker. And then we might find that we just settle somewhere in the middle. And it's such an interesting thing to watch, the spectrum of the reasons that people create. Here in the United States where I live, the world where we live is one where folks don't need to knit to clothe themselves. They can choose to take on that role, but it isn't a necessity like it's been in years and ages past. So when people choose to knit, there's less of that immediate need there. And so they can kind of pick and choose how they're going to go about their craft. And I think it's so interesting to see it laid out like this with this poll and reading the comments from folks and to see how much we vary and where we are on what seems to be like a spectrum on knitters' outlook and how they participate in the craft. And then if we go back to the poll, we have those trend chasers. It was just a small percentage, 2%. But these are the folks who said that their cast on motivation is whatever is hot right now, whatever is trending. And really, that's its own kind of joy. Because when you knit what's trending, you're not just making a sweater, you're joining a wave of knitters from all over the world who are making the same thing. It's a lot like a global knit along you didn't even sign up for. And I know there's a lot of folks out there who might give that side eye and think, well, why would you want to knit something that so many other people are knitting? And it's less about the item itself and more about the camaraderie behind it. I know that when people start seeing everybody knitting the same sweater for Rhinebeck, they tend to think that it's just people following along in a big conga line doing what the next big knitwear designer is doing. And I would argue that it's far more than that. It's more rich, it's more deep, it's more nuanced. The sweater is great. It's kind of like the door prize for being a part of and participating in a really interesting group camaraderie with people that have like interests that are participating in a like craft. When I see lots of folks knitting the Rhinebeck sweater, and please know that my opinion about this has evolved as I've kind of grown as a knitter, I get really excited for that kind of enthusiasm. I have yet to go to Rhinebeck, but I can imagine all those folks walking around Rhinebeck, seeing each other wearing the same design, but having it communicated in all kinds of different ways with different colors and different sizes and different modifications. That's gotta feel really cool to know that there's so many people that don't know each other, have never come into contact until that very moment, who are knitting something and enjoying something and riding that same wavelength. I think there's a lot of positive behind that. I don't think that that is something we should look at and say we have a problem here. Quite the opposite. I think it's a really cool way to see people coming together. And so those trend chasers, those hot right now knitters, they're knitting things that lots of other people are enjoying, and they're experiencing really fun, remote camaraderie, and I think that that's awesome. And I'll be honest, I've cast on plenty of hot right now patterns. Looking at you, terrazzo sweater, or my sabai top that I'm on number 2. We all do it, and like I said, it's for good reason. And that is reason enough. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We all feel it, we all think it, and we all kind of get a little bit blushy around the edges when anybody ever asks if we made the sweater we're wearing, and our response has to be, alas, no, I bought this one. It happened to me just the other day. I was picking up my kids. I had on this really lovely cream colored open work knit sweater that I purchased at Nordstrom Rack. It's a fantastic sweater. I absolutely love this sweater. It reminds me a lot of the Lacy Loops tee, but it's a sweater.
And not only that, the single ply tends to be kind of a thick and thin.
I love this sweater. It's cotton, so it breathes really well, and I just think the shape is fantastic. Of course, I purchased it because the price was right. It's a cotton fabric, and I didn't want to have to knit that sweater in the amount of time that it would have taken me to satisfy the urge to have that sweater. I know. I'm sorry. See? I'm apologizing for that. It's weird that we feel like because we knit, we have to apologize for purchasing store-bought knitwear. Nobody else out there who doesn't knit is apologizing for purchasing store-bought knitwear. They're not apologizing to their friends. Yeah, I purchased this at the store. I'm sorry I didn't knit it, but I don't know how to knit. That's silly. It's like apologizing for buying bread at the store even though you know how to bake your own bread. Knitters have this weird relationship with all of that. On one hand, they have this really prideful streak. Why would I buy that sweater? I could make that myself. But here's the truth, and you all know this truth damn well. Knitting takes hours, days, for some of us months, for others years to knit a single sweater. Good yarn is expensive. If yarn costs $30 a skein and you need 8 skeins, you do the math. $240 for a sweater that's not only going to take that yarn, it's going to take time. That's a huge investment. 3 times 8 is 24, right? Yeah, I think I got that right. And sometimes you just need a black turtleneck without dedicating 6 months of your life to it, not to mention black yarn. This is why I loved the original comment by Blue Knit so much so that I'm going to share it with you one more time. I can't be bothered taking the time to knit a wardrobe staple in stockinette in a neutral color. I can buy that at the store. If I'm taking the time to knit, I want to knit something unique. It's like that comment gave us all permission to let go of the guilt. Instead of thinking, I should never buy knitwear because I can knit, we flip the script. Why waste my precious knitting hours on what I could buy in the store? I'll buy the basics and save my knitting for what can't be bought. That's liberating, isn't it? But let's pause here a moment for a sidebar, because I know this is going to come up in the comments, as it should. It's a really great point of discussion. The whole question of fast fashion, consumerism, and whether buying knitwear from the store is just contributing to the problem. And here's the tension. A lot of knitters feel like a part of the point of knitting is to step away from all of that, to step away from fast fashion. Because fast fashion, as we all know, is the villain. Cheap, disposable clothing, waste, overconsumption, all of those things are lumped into the idea and the notion of fast fashion. And when we knit our clothing, we tend to feel that we are, like I said earlier, standing on the front lines, fighting in the battle against fast fashion. Knitting your own clothes can feel like that, and that's very empowering. But at the same time, are we really replacing fast fashion? And just because we knit our own clothing, is that our responsibility? And that's just a question. I'm just asking the question, and I'm eager to know your answers. Because for some people, the math doesn't always work out. A hand knit sweater takes weeks or months to make. It often costs more in yarn than a store-bought sweater, and it wears differently. Your own hand knit sweater for some is not a one-to-one substitution for a $40 machine knit sweater at a big box store. And here's the part that I really think matters, and it adds nuance to the conversation. Just because you knit your own clothes doesn't mean that knitting your own clothes is the only way to rebel against fast fashion. You can thrift, you can shop secondhand, you can hunt outlets, you can look for garments off the rack that are just simply made of better fibers and of a higher quality, and maybe even pay a little bit more for them knowing that they're going to last longer. It reminds me of a quote, and I don't know if it is word for word, but I know that the sentiment is attributed to Coco Chanel, and it's that only the rich can afford cheap clothes, or that those without cannot afford to buy cheap clothing. And the sentiment really reflects heavily on the fact that the cheaper the clothing, the more you're going to have to replace it, and the more it's going to cost in the long run. And I feel like this is important to mention when it comes to the topic we're talking about today. It's a healthy middle ground. It doesn't have to be knit every garment you own yourself or otherwise feed the fast fashion machine. There are so many ways to step outside of that cycle, and they can exist right alongside your knitting, guilt-free. Maybe the goal is balance. Buy thoughtfully. Whether that's thrifting, buying higher quality pieces off the rack, or yes, occasionally buying that sweater at Target because it's just something you have to have. And then use your knitting superpower for the things that are beyond the mall, the ones that feel like art, or therapy, or self-expression. And you're not carrying the impossible expectation that your knitting alone is going to dismantle consumer culture. So I'll leave you with this question that's been rattling around in my brain since I saw that comment by @BlueKnit. Do you knit to have clothes, or do you knit to make clothes? For me, I think I've been both, but seeing how you all answered that poll and reading through your comments has me rethinking how I spend my knitting time. Because maybe knitting isn't about filling your closet or making art. It's about choosing which role you want to play this time. So where do you land? Are you team unique and bold, team timeless and wearable, team a little bit of everything, or team hot right now? Let me know below in the comments and keep the conversation going. I absolutely love having these conversations with you guys, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this or took value from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Head over to Patreon. I will be filming an after show for this episode where I pull out 3 of my knits of yore. One that was a staple piece that I knit because I wanted to fill a gap in my wardrobe, one that was definitely for the funky color and design, and one that falls somewhere in between. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Until the next one, happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye.